fuel. All right, let's get started. So, hi guys, thanks for joining my stream. I know it's a little bit early, but I do appreciate you guys joining. So yeah, I mean, we've had a pretty interesting week. We always have interesting weeks in crypto. So, I mean, to be fair, Bitcoin hasn't like hugely moved. All right, so I mean, we have kind of just been in a little bit of a range for the past month or so, and then we kind of broke down from that range. That's when we obviously we saw a lot of altcoins making some lows just around this period here, around the 2nd, 3rd of August. This is obviously when we retook that link trade at just above $16, which is really, really nice. We had a really good rally from Bitcoin up to retest this trend line that we initially broke out of. Now, I'll give a little bit more context. This trend line, if my laptop can survive me zooming out this much, this trend line is just literally a daily time frame trend line that I've drawn where we have basically like 3 touch points. So we've got touch point here, touch point here, touch point here, and we broke down, and we have now kind of like retested the outer side of that trend line. We actually retested it twice, so you can see we kind of fell from here, and then obviously retested, rejected, but kind of held the higher low, retested it again, rejected. But I mean, obviously you can see as we are retesting it and rejecting it, we're obviously climbing a little bit higher. But what I would ideally like to see is for us to get back over this trend line. Now, you know, there's no guarantee that we will obviously get back over this trend line and continue. That doesn't mean that we won't possibly see upside momentum, but it's just something to kind of stay cautious about, because this was kind of like a substantial trend line on the daily, and we've obviously broken out of that, but we are still technically ignoring the trend line, because, you know, the trend line is important, but it's not like the be-all and end-all. The most important thing here is the fact that you can see we are still in an uptrend, like higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And, you know, what we really want to do is we want to make a higher high right now, right? So, you know, I've said this probably for God knows how many weeks on every single stream that I do, this is my sell zone for Bitcoin. What that means is that once we enter this region, this is where buying Bitcoin, in my personal opinion, becomes higher risk. And I say that based on, you know, what I've shown you previously when I've been doing fibs, showing you on the weekly, you know, this upside that we've seen since basically $15,000-$16,000, right? So we had this huge kind of leg up, where we kind of had this wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and you can say all of this is basically a wave 3. And then we've obviously got the wave 4 pullback, which was here where we entered the $74,000 region, and now we're in the final 5th wave. Now, obviously, the target really for a 3rd wave was round about this area here. We pretty much reached it spot on. I think it was like 107,000, 106,000. We basically tapped it. Then came back down here for that 4th wave. We held a higher low. We retested that previous weekly high that we'd flipped from resistance into support. And, you know, typically with a 5th wave, you're looking for maybe 1 or 2 Fibonacci levels higher. And that really is kind of taking us into this sell zone up here. Before then, as I said, you know, things start to become a little bit more high risk. We can look at the RSI as well. I mean, the RSI kind of gives you a good indication, right? So you can see here, back in March, when we reached like, what was it like? We pushed above all-time highs. You know, things were really crazy. The volume was crazy. You know, we were really, really oversold at this point. And then obviously you can see as we've been making higher highs, the RSI on the weekly, even though it was oversold here, you can kind of see that it's starting to actually go down. And this is what we would define as bearish divergence, right? Now, this is obviously, for me, this is kind of like the very early indication that we might not be too far from a top. And I've obviously said this multiple times. I don't think we're too far from a top. I do think maybe Bitcoin can push higher up into this region here, maybe 130 to 150K. At that point, though, we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for possibly consolidation. And as I've said before, we might get consolidation, within this region. Bitcoin dominance goes down, USDT dominance goes down, altcoins have their run, their mini alt season. But then, I think at some point in the next 6 months, we need to possibly be careful because we might start seeing other charts top. So I'm not like trying to predict anything here. I mean, we might have 6 months, we might have 9 months. I don't know if we've got longer than that, but I suppose we got to just see what the market does, right? We might not even have 6 months. This could be the top and we just kind of break down from here. I haven't seen any indication of that at the moment. So, I mean, there's definitely nothing for me to be concerned about when we look at Bitcoin at the moment and looking at it on the daily. What would possibly signal a major top for me is if we start breaking below this kind of 107,000 area down here. Worst case scenario, 105. I think if we start breaking these levels, then we can possibly say there might be a top. I wouldn't even want to see a break below this kind of 112,000 region, which is kind of the last proper low that we got. I wouldn't really want to see a break below that if we want to see a continuation to the upside. Okay. I could probably get rid of some of these fibs because this is pretty much what I was drawing for you guys to take that long trade that we basically are still in technically, because we entered at 113,759. I think we tapped like, what was it, 113, where is it? Yeah, it was down here. So it was like 113,355, something like that. Maybe just a little bit higher. I think we tapped it a little bit higher. But anyway, we had a really nice move up here. You can see this was pretty much meant to be like my mini scalp. But even for me, my scalps lost like a week. So maybe it was more like a swing. But yeah, I mean, I guess at this point we just kind of need to be careful because we did take some profits here. 119 was like the kind of nice TP zone, like the final TP zone, but I'm not entirely sure if we're going to get it or not. We might, but obviously we've got this pullback here that we're currently experiencing. So yeah, I think right now we had a really good run. Right now we're experiencing a pullback. I think Ethereum even reached like $4,000, which just waiting for this to load. So yeah, I mean, again, if I flip to this on the daily and zoom out a little bit, this trend line is kind of the area to watch because this is basically a trend line that I drew from previous highs, right? And we are very close. I think, personally, I think Ethereum might manage to break these previous highs because, we tested it here, came down, sweep liquidity down here at around 1,300, and now we basically have this really, really nice move up here. And I don't see any reason for Ethereum to not possibly break through and test the previous highs here at around $4,700, $4,800. So I think that's kind of like the next area that I'm looking at. Obviously, as I said, Bitcoin is looking relatively good at the moment. It's in a bit of a pullback, which is expected. Ethereum still looks relatively strong though. So, you know, maybe we're going to start to see Ethereum start to basically go on its run a little bit. I mean, obviously it has gone on a run throughout the most of this cycle. Bitcoin has been a lot stronger than Ethereum. Now, if Ethereum starts kind of getting stronger, and we see more strength from Ethereum versus Bitcoin, that is obviously going to be very good for altcoins. So it's also going to be very interesting to see how the weekly candle in the next 2 days is going to close. Are we going to close above this previous high here where this wick was $4,100? I don't know. I mean, we got to $4,012. If we close above $4,100 on the weekly, I think that is very, very bullish. I think there is a very good chance then that we see Ethereum go a little bit higher, and then we obviously see altcoins go a little bit higher as well. If we look at USDT dominance, I swear I saw Filecoin come up. Right, USDT dominance. Yeah, so again, something I've been talking about for quite some time. Again, one thing to be careful of, USDT dominance, I am kind of just seeing like a possible three-wave move down. You know, and this could possibly be like a ABC in this initial wave 1, ABC in this wave 2, and an ABC possibly in the wave C down to 3.75%. Now, obviously, if this happens, again, very, very good for altcoins, very, very good for, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum. It just means that there is more money in crypto than there is just lying around in people's wallets as USDT. Okay. Now, I mentioned that if we look at this on the slightly lower time frame, I can get rid of this very badly drawn squiggle. The golden pocket, which is what I did, by the way, is I took a fib from this low to this high. The golden pocket is at 4.29%, and we have basically been trying to hold that. Okay, so you can see here, we've basically been trying to hold that golden pocket fib level. If USDT dominance falls below this previous low here, which is pretty much just below the 786, I think we get a move down. I think we get like a proper move down from USDT dominance to once again basically test the 3.77% trend line here. And again, what that basically means is that we might get our alt season, proper alt season. So you can see obviously that USDT dominance has been testing this support. Testing, possibly going to test it again. And there's only so many times you can test support before it breaks. On the flip side, there's the trend line. Okay? And again, if we kind of look, and I know it's quite hard to possibly use the RSI on something that isn't technically monetary, but if we look at the RSI, we can actually see these tests of support, the RSI is getting stronger. And this is what we see as bullish divergence on the weekly. So just something to be aware of. We may get a nice move down. I don't know if we're going to break this support though. I'd like to think we do. This orange zone here would be like a really nice place to get to, but again, we don't know if it will happen. Best case scenario, we're definitely going to retest this support here, but we might reject and then game over, basically. USDT dominance becomes bullish, bull market over. So again, we need to kind of keep an eye on what's going on, but you can see that, you know, things are going to start to get tight. They're going to get squeezed. We're going to get some real squeezing in this zone here. And this is basically the end of this year to the start of next year. So I think big things, you can definitely quote me on this, big things are going to happen from now until next year, I would say, like the start of next year. Bitcoin dominance. So, you know, and this is something I've been tracking for, I don't know, like ages. You know, this is literally on the weekly for Bitcoin dominance. Like from November 2022, we've had this trend line. We tested it in January 2023. We tested it deeply in December 2024. We tested it a couple of weeks ago. We rejected from the 382 level. If you take a fib from the top here to the low here, we entered this region, this orange area, which I was eyeing up for a possible top in Bitcoin dominance, and we might start breaking down. We might start breaking down from that trend line, and I can tell you, if we start breaking down from that trend line and USDT dominance starts breaking down towards that support that I said, that around 3.77%, that is very, very good for altcoins. Very, very good for altcoins. So, I mean, that's kind of like a general overview of how I see the market at the moment. Everything's looking relatively good, but on the higher time frame, and I'm talking weekly, I do think we're getting towards the top. But that doesn't mean that in between that time of getting towards the top, we're not going to have like some really, really good runs from altcoins. Like, for instance, the one that we took that everyone is super happy about, Link, right? We had, you know, I mean, we've been in spot for Link since like $10, $11, right? And we've pretty much 2x, which is amazing. And if people were complete degens and took this on leverage from that area, then you're even bigger profit, right? But yeah, you know, we can see that, you know, I kind of said final TP for Link on this leverage trade was $20. We pretty much reached there. We reached 19.92. That's why I closed the trade, because, you know, we were pretty much at that area, and, you know, the last thing I want to do is basically like not close the trade and miss a little bit of that extra profit just because we missed it by like 0.01% or something silly. So now obviously we've got this expected pullback at this area of resistance. Now, what I would say is, as long as, for instance, Link in this scenario, I think as long as we're holding, and let's take a fib. Yeah, so I would say as long as we're holding above $18 to $17.5, we can expect Link to go higher. You know, I might even do like a kind of re-entry on the trade. See how we go, basically. So we can obviously get like a full position size here. If we start seeing closes, like 4 hour candle closes below that $17.5 region, there is a good chance that we have actually locally topped. And if that happens, what I would see happening is that we might start retesting down here again. Possibly in the 12.9, so $13 to $14.50 region. We might actually retest that area. But that is obviously if we end up losing this $14.5 region here. Now, On the micro time frame, we can kind of possibly see a 5-wave move up, but I'm not going to focus on that too much right now. On the higher time frame, the 4-hour, I am just seeing a 3-wave move up. So I do expect a 4 and possibly a 5 breaking through that $20 resistance. If we do that, we can then expect possibly a pullback here, and then we can go long and hold this until $30. That's what would be really nice to see. But at the moment, this is just a 3-wave, and what we traded is we basically traded the 1-2 setup. This is what I call a 1-2 setup. 1-2 setups are like the most lucrative because the third wave is always like the longest wave. Okay, the third wave is always the longest wave if we get it, because typically after a 3-wave move, typically, not always, but typically we get failures. You get a 3-wave move, and then you get a failure where we just break below this previous entry point. Okay, that's why 1-2 setups are like the nicest trades to take, but you also want to bail a lot of the time at that point because, you know, or at least be taking profits, because it's not guaranteed that we're going to get a 4th wave and hold it and get a 5th wave. It's just not guaranteed. And in crypto, you know, a lot of the time they do fail. Like, I'll give you a really good example here, for instance. 3-wave move, okay? 3 waves, yeah? And then we pretty much failed. And we failed because, for me, the invalidation point was basically breaking below this region here. It's like 786 region. We pretty much got to like the point of like the actual start of the wave 1. And that was kind of like an indicator that if we even get any kind of bounce, which again, this was in 3 waves, this is possibly a good time to short. And obviously, yeah, whoever would be shorting would be right to do so. Again, though, this entire wave here, this entire move was a 3-wave move down, which left the door open for Link to turn around. Okay, and that's why you're seeing what we're seeing, basically. So, you know, everything's looking good at the moment. I think we just need to be a little bit patient. There's a couple of other coins. I'm going to quickly go through them because I need to, unfortunately, leave to see my mom. But H-bar was a really good one, and I'm like super pissed off that I had my alert set, but I didn't have my limit order set, which was super annoying. But where is it? To be honest, I might have just gotten lucky, to be honest, it probably just didn't. It didn't even hit. Like that was such a good trade. That looked like such a good trade. Like it literally got to like 22.55 cents. But I think my entry was like literally a fraction lower. I'm not even joking. It was like literally a fraction lower. That's why I didn't get an alert on this, which was super irritating. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we might actually get another opportunity. So H-bar is another one that I've really, really liked the look of, kind of keeping an eye on. But, you know, the 28-cent level for H-bar has been like major resistance, right? So kind of this region here has been like major resistance. You can see we kind of couldn't break it here. We couldn't break it here. We briefly broke it, fell back down again. Haven't really retested it again. So you can see that this is pretty much like heavy resistance for H-bar. Definitely want to keep an eye on. And I am currently keeping an eye on it as we speak. A few other ones like Doge. I think Doge did really well, actually. Yeah, so there was like a nice move from... this was end of June. Actually, to be honest, I don't think Doge has done that well. Yeah, it's not really moved up much, actually. Ignore me. It's... yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really call that like a massive move. Again, though, I mean, we can see this. We don't even need to zoom in onto the 4-hour 3-wave move. Easily can break down from here. I mean, I had actually labeled the entry here, which, again, would have been quite nice. You know, could have got like a little 10% unleveraged move up, but you know, it is what it is. I mean, we had a really good run with Link. Fetch AI is being a little shit. Excuse the language, but it really is. Always is. I mean, you know, look, on the plus side, it reached the initial target of the 100% fib extension, which is where I was eyeing up for it to initially reach. But this is why I said, you know, trim here stops the entry. And I think most people's stops will be around here, which is possibly where we will re-enter. Because again, I see this as just a three-wave move, an ABC pattern. It's literally an ABC pattern. 4, 5. That's what I'd like to see. Somewhere around here. But I want to see us hold this level, okay? So, you know, I mean, if we get stopped out and we want to kind of dive back into this, yeah, I mean, definitely I would say, you know, yeah, I mean, I would personally say invalidation is even here, and we can take this up to around about here, maybe even higher. Yeah, I mean, I would expect it to get to around at least 75 cents. But obviously, if we are going to take this again, I would definitely keep our entries around the golden fib, golden pocket fib area. Possibly have a DC around here, which is going to be your 786 level. And then, yeah, our invalidation will, I'll probably keep it a little bit tighter, keep it like a 4-hour candle close below this level. That's if we re-enter. I love Fetch AI, but it's been a bit of a slow burner. I know when it moves, but it has been pretty slow. Especially compared to Link. I mean, Link has been like, you know, full throttle firing, which is kind of what we want to see. Sui as well. Sui's been performing really, really well. You know, again, though, we want to be possibly catching like a move down to maybe like $350 region before holding this until, you know, $5 plus or even higher than that. Yeah, maybe like 3.58, something like that. If we get close to this region, then I might make a signal. But yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it for now. But Sui is another really good one to watch. And the last one that I was going to mention was, what was it? I can't remember what it was. What was the one that I was going to mention that I thought looked really good? Sui H bar. Fetch is alright. Link, obviously, we're really good. It's kind of just slipped out of my mind. I can't remember. But if I do remember, I'll let you know. There's a few coins that just kind of like run around in my head about 5 times a day, and I just sometimes end up forgetting which one I'm thinking about. So yeah, I mean that's probably like as better overview as I can give right now. Let me just double check the chat. Okay, so UK said that he's in the queue. So Sol.near. Yeah, Solana. Yeah, so Solana, actually, yeah, Solana was the one that was on my mind. Completely forgot about it. There was such a good area of support that I just literally didn't call. I don't even know why I didn't call it, to be honest. I literally don't know what was wrong with me, because I drew this way before any of this happened. We had this trend line. We dipped into support, and then we literally used it as a springboard. Boom, to $200. I mean, this was like this move was just so nice. It was like a 50% move. I mean, that's crazy. Like a 50% unleveraged move. Super annoyed that I didn't have an entry on there, but you know, it is what it is. But you can see, currently that we retested the golden fib level beautifully here at $157. Literally just tapped it beautifully. And obviously had a really nice reaction. Now, we could be on our way to $260, but we really, really need to clear that previous high here, preferably that previous high at $204 as well, okay? So, I mean, with Solana, Solana's looking really good. This was definitely an area to buy. But we need to obviously, like, get past that $205 level before I can say, okay, I think we are definitely heading towards $260, if not higher. Okay? So yeah, Solana looking really, really good at the moment. Hey Sharky, how's it going? What else? Dot. I haven't looked at Dot in a long time. I mean, is it still going all right? Is it like $5, $4? I can't even remember what it is now. Yeah, it's just on the $4. I used to like Dot, and you can see that I've analyzed the absolute hell out of this for quite a number of times. I don't know how I feel about Dot anymore, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because I don't like the look of this move down here, because this to me looks like a 5-wave move down. That's what kind of concerns me a little bit. And we have a 3-wave move up. That's kind of the only thing that concerns me right now. I mean, I would definitely be more interested in Dot if it kind of broke above this $4.3 region here. Better $4.5 region. I just think there's like, I think there's better coins. I just personally think there's better coins. But you know, like if people bought down here like a $3 region or $3.50 region, it's not terrible. I mean, you know, it's gone up a little bit, but I would definitely say it's like one of the weaker coins. So it's just not something I'm super interested in. Near's like one of my favorites that I just don't really trade much anymore for some weird reason, but I was trading this when it used to be like $20 ages ago. So yeah, it has been in a downtrend for quite some time, and then obviously we broke out of that downtrend in April. You could say it's just really hard to say that we held a higher low. Looks like a double bottom. I'm not a huge fan of double bottoms. Pardon the bun. See where my mind's going. Pardon the pun. But I mean, yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of double bottoms, to be honest. But again, I mean, you know, near looks pretty good at the moment. I mean, you know, we did have a nice move up. Could I call that a 5-wave move? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, you know, you could give it the benefit of that and say that this was a 5-wave move up, and we've had a 3-wave move down, and we held that region here. Let me just throw this fib, not that. You know what, let me draw a new fib. We got to around, I'd say, the 50%. I think we might have even touched the 618. What was that? 2.30, 2.285. Yeah, so very, very close to the golden pocket. So, you know, this is a good reaction. This is kind of what you want to see. It's a good reaction. Again, though, a little bit too small. I think a lot of charts are looking at that right now, where we have this 1-2 setup, springboard. But you know, we need to see 5 waves up. Okay, we need to see 5 waves up. Yes, near has reached the 100% fib level. I mean, for a third wave, ideally you want to get to the 1.382. which is where this previous high was around here at around $2.74, $2.75. It didn't quite make it yet, so again, it kind of makes it a little bit weak. If we can possibly push a little bit higher here, then you can say, okay, that's a third wave. Or at least that's the bare minimum requirements of a third wave. And then we can watch for a 4-5 pattern. If we kind of go up a little bit more, but then kind of break down, that's, again, not what we want to see. So, hopefully that is, that's good for you guys. And, I hope everyone kind of got a good idea of what I'm watching. So very higher time frame, possibly approaching a top in this cycle. So for the next 3 to 9 months, I'm going to be very wary about, if you've got spot bags and you've been holding them since the bear market, or you've been holding them for a long time, definitely be wary about it. We might be approaching a top. In the relative short term, if we do get a pullback, we need to hold that higher low on most charts and then create a higher high for that final 5th wave. And then we can watch for a 3-wave pullback on the much higher time frame. And then we can enter into those regions and hold those coins for a much bigger rally, which is hopefully expected if Bitcoin dominance and USDT dominance fall, with Bitcoin being relatively stable. So that's pretty much it. Hope that was informative for everyone. I really appreciate you guys joining the stream. You know me, I'm always in the chat. If you have any questions, just ping me. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend, and I'm probably not going to trade on a weekend because you know me, I don't really like weekends that much in terms of trading. Things are always either boring or completely chaotic. So we'll just take it easy, right? I mean, we had a really good trade on Link. We had a really good trade on Bitcoin. A little bit of profit with Fetch. So yeah, let's just chill, right? But thanks very much, guys. Ping me anytime. Safe trading. Peace out.